Part 2 of 2. So, we've just heard the absolutely, and I'm sure you'll agree, astounding allegations made by Fuller, Smith and Turner, likely known to you as Fuller's Pubs, and their representatives. In that episode, I shared with you the accusations levelled against me, alongside their claims of having collected evidence to support their assertions, yet it was with remarkable ease that I was able to highlight the flaws and serious inconsistencies within both their allegations and their purported evidence that they presented. I mean, it wasn't hard, really, was it? When you put idiots in charge of the bus, then expect it to crash. This not only called into question the credibility of their allegations, witness testimony, remember Naveen, who wasn't even there, and alleged evidence, but also raised concerns about the motivations behind their discriminatory and defamatory claims. And, like me, you're probably asking, why? What motive could drive such discriminatory and defamatory allegations that amount to a hate crime here in the UK? The evidence, collectively, points to Fuller's seeking revenge after I undertook a protected act by filing a claim to the Employment Tribunal courts for HIV-AIDS discrimination in January 2025. Following their discovery of my HIV-AIDS status, their treatment shifted drastically, from a routine employee relationship to frustrating my return to work and subjecting me to these malicious and calculated acts of hate. This was, seemingly and undeniably by the evidence they presented themselves, was a deliberate effort to remove me from the company, one in which you're going to learn they succeeded in, presumably rooted in fear and prejudice of my HIV-AIDS status. Moreover, it is clear that being white and British factored significantly into their conduct, as the baseless allegations laid bare Fuller's own racial bias and discriminatory behaviour. The Disciplinary. On the 6th of June 2025, I received a letter from the Fuller's representative, Jim Hughes, operations manager at Fuller's Pubs, inviting me to a disciplinary hearing. This was astounding, given the significant flaws I had already brought to the attention of Ben Bullman Bell, the investigating officer. There was no solid evidence to warrant escalation to a disciplinary stage, particularly in light of the issues I raised in part 1. You can't make it up. It is frankly baffling that Ben Bullman Bell chose to rely on the testimony of Naveen Kumar, who claims to have overheard the alleged statement, when Naveen was, in fact, as you just heard, off duty the entire day at the time the incident supposedly occurred. This glaring discrepancy undermines the credibility of their entire case and that of the Fuller's representative and Fuller's themselves. One doesn't need to have watched an episode of Murder, She Wrote or Judge Judy to recognise that such inconsistencies clearly fail to support the claims being made. Anyhow, the disciplinary invitation reads as follows. I am writing to advise you that you are required to attend a disciplinary hearing. The details are as follows. Date, 11th of June 2025. Time, 2:30 p.m. Venue, Fuller's The Crown Pub, London, N1. I will be hearing the disciplinary hearing and will be accompanied by a company witness, note taker. I wonder if that witness is going to be Naveen. The investigatory officer, Ben Bullman Bell, may also be present for part of the meeting. The purpose of the hearing is to discuss allegations of 1. Harassment, bullying or discrimination of any nature, including on the grounds of sex, race, ethnic origin, religion or belief, marital status, age, sexual orientation, transsexuality. What on earth is transsexuality? Or disability, against colleagues, customers, visitors or suppliers, or any other breach of the inclusion policy. This is in relation to an alleged incident on the 2nd of April 2025, where you allegedly told a fellow colleague to go back to your own country. Is that the statement that Naveen heard, but actually wasn't there because it was day off? Okay. 2. It is also alleged that you have taken photographs and or recorded videos of fellow colleagues without their knowledge or consent. This conduct could constitute a serious breach of employee privacy, violate workplace policies regarding respectful and ethical behaviour, and may contravene applicable data protection and privacy laws. You will also be forwarded, separately, the following documents to be considered at the hearing. So this is their evidence. Company disciplinary policy, data protection policy, safety, care and respect policy, part 1, belonging and inclusion. It's got to be a joke. Safety, care and respect policy, part 2, harassment and bullying. So I complained in February 2025 about harassment and racism of being called a fucking idiot repeatedly by an assistant manager, who then kept referring to white people as, you people are so disgusting. And Fuller's now say they've got a safety, care and respect policy, part 1 and part 2. Oh, honestly, God, I think they just must be making this up as they go along. Anyhow, investigation report dated 2nd of June 2025. Must have been written by Ben Bullman Bell, despite highlighting all the flaws in his evidence. Okay, this one's interesting. Complaint made by Arik Tunk, dated 17th of April 2025. Well, I think we've debunked that myth. Arik Tunk didn't make the complaint because it was authored in the manager's office of Barraboy and Banker, therefore must have been authored by the general manager Ershad Muffajubi, which is also confirmed to support that theory by way of the fact that he used the same AI tools to generate text for Arik's complaint as he did for an investigation report he did on somebody who Arik complained about. And then we also know that Nishvar Dhillon altered the document in some way, tampered with the document, so that the Microsoft Word required her to save it. Because if she just viewed it already, she would have just clicked it off again and that would have been the end of it. She actually had to save it, which must mean she adjusted it, which means she tampered with the document. And to what lengths? We don't know. She could have rewritten the whole thing. Anyhow, so I think we've safely ruled out that it wasn't Arik's complaint. Anyhow, minutes from meeting with Arik Tunk dated 29th of April 2025, which in the previous episode we just highlighted many of the flaws and lies that he told. Minutes from the meeting with Kamara Greenidge Reid, 29th of April 2025, again highlighted all the lies and flaws that she told. Minutes from the meeting with Naveen Kumar dated 2nd of May 2025. So that's the witness testimony that Naveen gave when he said, I heard him say, and then the racist remark. Then he backtracked in the next breath, literal next breath, when he said, I didn't quite hear it, but I was on shift and experienced the fallout from it. And then consequently revealed what Mr. Ben Bullman should have realised in the investigation stage, that it was Naveen's day off, so therefore it was impossible that he'd heard it. But the fact that Naveen's saying that he heard it and he's able to repeat it verbatim, word for word, like Kamara Greenidge Reid did, tells you that Naveen has been instructed, forced, coerced into saying that he heard it, to be able to repeat back what he claims to have heard. Amazing that, isn't it? It just all falls apart. It's just bizarre. Email from yourself dated 29th of April 2025. Okay. This one's interesting. Video taken by you dated 28th of April 2025. I hate to break this to Fuller Smith and Turner and their representatives, but 28th of April, I was actually at home all day. I'd even photographed myself and posted it on my social media. It's time-stamped. Also, I'd been signed off sick from the 14th of April. Had 2 mini strokes on the 24th of April and was signed off further. So I haven't been back to the Barraboy and Banker since the 14th of April, or maybe the days prior to the 14th of April. So how I could film a colleague at the pub on the 28th of April is, it's next level stuff, innit? You can't make it up. I mean, how stupid are these people? You know, I can just imagine the judge is just not going to be impressed when this finally lands on, when this finally gets to court. Oh, let's keep going anyway. Let's press on because it gets better. Disciplinary meeting minutes from Paolo Estevez dated 30th of April 2025. Paolo was quite upset that these meetings from something that was meant to be private and confidential was shared with me. Statement from former employee Milan Ivanov, which turns out just to be a heavily cropped WhatsApp chat, which is just a speech bubble. No confirmation that it was from Milan. Doesn't meet the standards required by ACAS for it to be deemed a legitimate statement, and it just wouldn't stand up in a court of law. Anyhow, so that's what they've managed to gather together. You can see how desperate they are, can't you? Yours sincerely, Jim Hughes, Operations Manager, CC Ben Bullman Bell, both representatives of Fuller Smith and Turner. So, Fuller sent this invitation on Friday the 6th of June 2025 at 3:06 p.m, inviting me to their disciplinary hearing for Wednesday the 11th of June 2025. And there is no evidence, if we can call it that. There's no evidence attached. Recall that long old list that I just read out and tore to shreds? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yep, of course you are. My listeners are nothing but smart, unlike these absolute morons. Should we give Fullers and their representatives a minute to catch up? Cotton on? We'll be here all night. So, anyhow, I emailed them at 3:40 p.m, where I wrote, "Afternoon, please confirm when you intend to forward your bundle to support your claims," bundle being evidence. "I trust it will be the end of today." I waited, and waited, and waited some more. Yep, you guessed it. It was evident that sending the invite on Friday without attaching any evidence was a deliberate tactic. Fuller's nor its representatives did not provide any of their evidence in response to the email until Monday the 9th of June, when their disciplinary hearing was scheduled for Wednesday the 11th of June at 2:30 p.m. This left an extremely limited window to prepare a proper response upon reviewing their alleged evidence. I firmly believe that Fullers were fully aware of the significant and glaring flaws that I have identified in the previous episode in their alleged evidence, and assumed that by delaying its delivery, I would have insufficient time to thoroughly examine and point out the glaringly obvious and serious issues with their claims. And you have to ask, what kind of company does this? The ACAS Code of Practice clearly states that anyone facing a disciplinary process must be given sufficient time to prepare their response, a standard that aligns with both common sense, logic, and legal principles. In today's society, fairness and the right to a proper defence are fundamental, even if personal feelings towards an individual are negative, as this case seems to be. It was evident that Fuller's denied me this basic right as an employee by not permitting adequate preparation time. More astonishingly, as we heard in the previous episode, they allowed Naveen Kumar to make false statements despite him not being present at work for the entire day in question. They claim they allowed Millen to submit witness testimony via a dubious speech bubble from WhatsApp that we have no verification as to who it came from. Yet, I am not afforded the same basic rights. This raises serious questions about Fuller's motives and the integrity of their disciplinary procedure, processes, their representatives, HR, and the company as a whole. Also, their allegations forced me to delay 2 episodes of my podcast during the Pride Icon series. And on Monday the 9th of June, I had tickets for Holly Johnson at the Royal Albert Hall. After everything I had endured with Fuller's up to that point, I deliberately avoided opening my email on that day to prevent my evening from being spoiled by any more, and I've got to speak plainly, any more bullshit, to which I knew that this is what this was. I was confident that I had not done what they alleged, and their own testimony, witnesses and evidence proves that. I went to see Holly Johnson and had an amazing time, but as soon as I got home, the post-show high vanished when I finally read this crap as I unpicked in the previous episode. Even then, Fuller's had not provided all the evidence they claimed to have, including the alleged witness testimony of Milan Ivanov and the CCTV footage they said they would rely on, to which Arit Tunk asserted that Ershad Muffajubi stated I was clearly seen making the alleged racist statements, an assertion later proven false, even though I was certain I had made no such statement, let alone one that could be identified on footage. However, after highlighting the deliberate nature of sending this alleged evidence so late and advising I had an appointment with a solicitor on Friday the 13th of June to ascertain if I was prejudicing both my legal claim, as the employment judge had already been informed of what was going on, and police investigation, as I had reported these fresh allegations of Fuller, Smith and Turner and its representatives to both the employment tribunal judge and to the Metropolitan Police as a hate crime. So, Fullers rescheduled the hearing. For what date, I hear you ask? You guessed it. They scheduled the hearing for Friday the 13th of June 2025, therefore denying me to be in receipt of legal counsel and a companion at such short notice. Again, why would they do this, and how can they claim it was anything but deliberate and malicious to ensure I was treated unfairly? In any event, I confirm my attendance and highlight all the flaws in their alleged evidence in a 41-page document and I email it to them ahead of the hearing. Fullers respond on the 12th of June 2025, where they state, quote, "Thank you for forwarding your evidence pack. In view of the large amount of material provided on the 11th of June 2025, we are going to reschedule the upcoming disciplinary meeting to allow sufficient time for a thorough review of the documents, as well as give you more time to find a companion to accompany you. This will enable Jim to determine how or if they impact the current proceedings." End quote. Oh, it's amazing that I was asking them to reschedule the meeting and it was a no. Then they rescheduled it on the day that they knew I had an appointment with the solicitor. And now all of a sudden, I've highlighted all the flaws as I have done in episode 1, and now they want to pause and look. Probably to assess how smart I actually am and how stupid they've been. Anyhow, I reply where I state. Good evening. This is incredibly disappointing, and I must assert that it appears deliberately unfair for you to swiftly postpone your disciplinary hearing to grant yourself additional time, while the same consideration was not extended to me. I had previously communicated the complexity of your allegations against me, which I firmly state are malicious and made in bad faith. Moreover, I was in the process of seeking legal counsel to understand my position in participating, given this incident has been added to my claim. I trust that this postponement serves no purpose other than to allow my employer to restructure its narrative in an attempt to achieve its ultimate objective in removing me for having undertaken a protected act and diligently highlighting concerning and illegal conduct in its site. I am not aware of submitting any evidence pack. I merely pointed out the flaws in yours, which are embarrassingly obvious. In short, I have carried out due diligence where Mr. Bullman Bell failed, to unearth how the allegations and testimonies distinctly failed to support the claims made against me. If anything, they clearly demonstrate that the allegations are false and were made in bad faith, which raises serious questions about why Mr. Bullman Bell permitted the disciplinary stage to advance. The discrepancies I have identified fundamentally undermine Mr. Bullman Bell's investigation and the integrity of the assertions put forth by him, the complainant, and the alleged witnesses. Oh, and it's just exhausting to having to keep repeating yourself. But you'd think by now they'd either realise the errors they have made, which are glaringly obvious and have legal consequences, or realise that I have caught them out and acknowledged the legal consequences. Either way, it doesn't work out good for them, does it? But Fuller's instead invite me to a disciplinary hearing on the 24th of June 2025 at Fuller's Parcel Yard, King's Cross. Given I had already confirmed my attendance and was keen to attend their circus of a disciplinary to highlight their flaws and no doubt embarrass them completely face to face, even though that's not really in my nature, but actually this was just too good to pass, it was evident that they assumed I was an absolute dunce. Continuing with the disciplinary after submitting a 41-page document meticulously detailing their shortcomings made it clear they were determined to remove me regardless of the facts, and they were not interested in listening. While it is generally advised for anyone facing disciplinary action to attend, by this stage, it was obvious the decision to dismiss me had been irreversibly predetermined. Furthermore, I had no desire to waste my time or compromise my integrity by engaging with individuals so evidently idiotic and clearly instructed to dismiss me at any cost. Legal ramifications be damned. As a result, I declined to attend, and I'm confident any judge will be able to understand this decision as the evidence with regard to Fuller's behaviour and its representatives is overwhelmingly obvious. And it gets worse. Because 4 days before the alleged disciplinary hearing at Parcel Yard in King's Cross, scheduled for the 24th of June 2025, I was informed by a potential employer, another pub company, that I had been, quote, fired, end quote, for, quote, racism, end quote. This arose because the potential employer, initially enthusiastic about my experience, requested I confirm an interview as soon as possible, which I did. However, they then contacted their friend Ershad Muffajubi, despite no references being listed on my CV, seemingly reaching out to what was then my present employer upon my CV. This resulted in my interview being cancelled. When I pressed for details, I was told that Ershad Muffajubi had given an unauthorised reference stating I had been fired for racism. This clearly proves that a decision had been reached well before the disciplinary hearing took place, 4 days after this, and long before I was formally dismissed and informed of that decision, thereby upholding their false, discriminatory and defamatory allegations. And, of course, I alerted Fuller's to this act of defamation, along with their provision of an unauthorised and factually incorrect reference, which led to the withdrawal of potential employment and caused significant damage to my professional reputation, given I have no control over where that information gets dispersed. Furthermore, Fuller's claimed to have no knowledge of such a reference being provided. However, the evidence contradicts this assertion, as the potential hiring manager made the exchange identifying Ershad as making the claim through a series of written messages on a recruitment platform, of which I still retain, where the most important one states, and I quote, "Ershad told me he fired you for racism, which is not what we want here." End quote. Disciplinary outcome. Then, despite having already been informed of the outcome of this circus of a disciplinary, the hearing was held in my absence 4 days later, allegedly, because Ershad already knew 4 days prior that I'd been fired for racism. Anyhow, on the following day, 25th of June 2025, I was formally notified of the decision, despite Ershad already been advised 4 days prior, and 4 days before the disciplinary hearing was held, who then told potential employer, a member of the public essentially. Anyhow, the disciplinary outcome reads as follows. I am writing to confirm my decision to summarily dismiss you for gross misconduct. My decision was made after careful consideration of the facts presented to me. Facts. Your length of service, disciplinary record, which was none, and alternative sanctions, which were none. The reasons for this are 1. Harassment, bullying, or discrimination of any nature, including on the grounds of sex, race, ethnic origin, religion or belief, marital status, age, sexual orientation, transsexuality. What the fuck is transsexuality? I'm a gay man, I'm 42 years old, I've been gay all my life. I have no idea what transsexuality is. Is this an old term? Transsexual? Oh, I think the transgender community would have something to say about that, being referring to people as transsexuals. And trans isn't a sexuality, it's a gender. Anyhow, or disability, against colleagues, customers, visitors or suppliers, or any other breach of the inclusion policy. Following a thorough review, are you sure, mate? Following a thorough review of the evidence presented, I have formed a reasonable belief that you did make a racial remark on the 2nd of April 2025, whereby you told a colleague that people from their country are lazy and they should, quote, go back, end quote. This conclusion is based on the evidence provided to me, including witness statements and CCTV footage. I have considered the accounts of Arit Tunk and Kamara Greenwich Reid, provided within the investigation meetings chaired by Ben Bullman Bell. Both provide consistent statements describing you walking by them, making the comment that suggested their people are lazy and that they should go back to their country. Having reviewed the full CCTV recording, I can see that on the footage you clearly walk by them and make some form of comment that draws a reaction from them both. Now, we'll get into this a little bit later, but my mouth and lips aren't moving when I pass them, and a reaction could have been that I could have walked past them and farted very loudly. I may have burped very loudly. But I can tell you what it is, and I'd been reporting this prior to these allegations, was what they call indirect harassment, indirect bullying. It was 2 colleagues that were just taking the piss behind my back and were just look at this idiot working and we're studying doing nothing. That's what it was. Even though they've redacted it in the CCTV footage, you can clearly see that's what it is. Anyway, this moron goes on. And you can see he's not mentioned Naveen yet. In collaboration with this allegation, former Deputy Manager Millen, who was on shift at the time of the incident... No, he wasn't, mate. Millen had already clocked off at 4 o'clock, and this apparently happened at 4:30. God, they're so stupid. And he's not seen as Arit claims on the CCTV footage. Anyhow, Milan Ivanov was on shift at the time of the incident, was approached for his recollection of the day, and he confirmed that he was informed of the allegation by Arit on the 2nd of April 2025, so the day it happened. Finally, Naveen Kumar, who was not working that day, confirmed that when he was on shift, he saw the fallout from the comment.
The whole story doesn't make sense. And if something doesn't make sense, it's not true.
You can't make it up. Naveen said in his witness testimony that he was there, that he heard it. And I've just exposed him as having lied. But this guy makes no mention of the fact that, shit, our witness has lied. And when someone's lied, why is he lying? Why has he lied? And why was he able to repeat the same statement that was alleged to have been said by me, by Kamara? Because he'd clearly been coerced. He'd clearly been told to say that. Why would somebody do that? Why would somebody go and tell somebody what to say and then tell them to lie about it, and then that person actually come forward as a witness and lie? Oh, is it just amazing how they just are overlooking this? Because we don't hear of Naveen again. Right, anyway, he goes on. I understand that you have been invited on multiple occasions to attend meetings with Ben Bullman Bell and now myself, where you would have been able to see the CCTV footage in its entirety. However, you have refused to attend all meetings which have been proposed as part of this process. Because, mate, the ACAS Code of Conduct and the law requires you to send me that CCTV footage prior to me attending any meeting whatsoever so that when I attend, I can respond fully and fairly. That's what you call a fair and transparent process. Anyhow, I also understand that you have concerns with Arit and suggest that he has either raised these allegations in retaliation to past complaints you have levied against him, or that he was influenced by the site's general manager. So we already know about his relationship with the general manager. Arit Tunk as well, I caught him, I walked in on him and Naveen trying to steal a bottle of Prosecco, and I reported it to the area manager, because Fuller's actually came down on you as like a ton of bricks if you were helping yourself to Coca-Cola. Not that I did, because the Coca-Cola gun was so mouldy that when you've got a HIV/AIDS diagnosis, compromised immune system, effectively drinking mould, plus their glasses machines are absolutely filthy. Anyhow, it's beside the point. As the most senior figure on site, it is common for colleagues to raise complaints first to their general manager, who can then determine whether the complaint can be handled locally or, in serious cases, refer the matter to the people team. In this case, your general manager, Ershad Muffajubi, forwarded the complaint to the people team, which allowed for impartial and independent managers to handle the matter. Oh, more about that. I've just got to read it. We'll break this down. I also understand that Arit has not been informed by any operations manager, as they undertake a review of the complaints from the Barraboy and Banker site, that you raise concerns about him. Therefore, I have no credible reasons to believe Arit, who you have yourself described as previously having good relationship with, would bring these allegations not in good faith. Said I had a good relationship with. I saw him for 2 hours, as the timesheet shows. Our shifts overlapped. He didn't say anything bad, but he didn't say anything good. I'm not going to say I had a bad relationship with him when nothing happened. He asked me where the Guinness glasses was, and I told him that was it, the end. Furthermore, you will be aware that I have also been appointed to hear your grievance, in considering whether on the balance of probabilities, if you made such a comment in this instance. I have been drawn to comments contained within your communications. I find myself deeply concerned by the comments you have submitted in both your own disciplinary response document dated 11th of June 2025 and your grievance dated 5th of June 2025. What's June? 2025. In particular, I draw your attention to the following comments, which appear to support that you hold discriminatory views. So now he's going to quote some comments that I made within my communications about raising what was going on here and how there seems to be a pattern emerging. Anyhow, he quotes me as stating, having observed the general manager's social media account, it becomes evident that he identifies as a man of the Islamic faith who holds views that are not supportive of homosexuality. Which is true. This crap and these lies are all because this is it's motivated by the fact that I'm a white British gay man with HIV/AIDS who's a homosexual. This is why I'm facing these outrageous allegations. Anyhow, he goes on. I mention this here as it seems Arit is one of those who uses discriminatory language and whose ideology is centred around discrimination based on both race and sexual orientation. The allegations that Arit is making against me is quite clearly based on race and national identity. He's saying that I said to him, go back to your country because it's the easiest. It's the default allegation that a lot of people make against somebody who is white, British, English. And on top of that, my sexuality being a gay man with what was once dubbed the gay plague, hence my HIV/AIDS status, which somehow they've come to learn of, and of which Arit found amusing by laughing along with Kevin when Kevin was shouting out, all gays have AIDS, and then repeatedly later, working with someone with AIDS is like working on death row, and where Arit rubbed off staff food off the whiteboard and replaced it with death row meal, alluding that because he's working with somebody with HIV/AIDS, or in his, to quote Kevin, AIDS, that he's somehow going to get infected, and the free meal that he's going to get on duty is going to be his last meal, a death row meal, because by the end of the shift he's going to die of AIDS. So what's discriminatory in me highlighting that? Also, he quotes me as saying, here it seems these allegations all stem from those with a strong religious and or faith where homosexuality is not permitted. How is that discriminatory? And to rebut this allegation that Fuller, Smith and Turner here are making by way of its representative, I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown of a pattern that was emerging, which I'm sure they probably wouldn't want me to tell you, but I'm going to share it with you. Just days before he made the allegation against me, Eric Tunk made another allegation against another white gay man who was in his late 50s, the assistant manager, been with the company for about 14 years. So already there's a pattern emerging, no? It just makes you wonder where they plucked out these allegations. But anyhow, Eric Tunk alleges something along the lines of, against this white, gay assistant manager being with the company for 14 years, that the assistant manager said to Eric, "Oh, you've got a nice ass. Let's go back to my house and we'll have sex." And the assistant manager assures me, he said, look, because I helped him with his disciplinary, look, Will, if I'd have said it, I would have said to you that I said it. He said, but I didn't. He said, I did not say it. He said, look at him. He's one ugly cunt. I wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. Plus, he's about 40 years my junior. I'm a happily married gay man. I don't mix work and private life. He said, it's absolutely false. Anyhow, Naveen Kumar, who by his own admission was here from India on a student visa, levelled an allegation at me, which I exposed was an absolute lie. I think the listeners will agree. Even Jim Hughes here, as much as I've been a little bit discourteous about him being a bit stupid and thick, he admits, he acknowledges, because he can't really, can he? Because the evidence is outstanding, but admits that Naveen wasn't there. Why would Naveen make these allegations? Why would he give such testimony? Why would he say he heard something when he hadn't? But then also as well, was able to repeat the alleged statement word for word. Because he'd been coerced. Why had he been coerced? And who by is more important, but why is he being coerced? Because it was racially motivated. Because I'm a white English man, saying that I said something like this, a lot of people that make these allegations against white English people believe that it's just going to stick, and that's it. And to a degree, sometimes it works, because how can you prove something that didn't happen? And in this case, you had people ganging up, yeah, not smart people, like Kamara and Naveen that have come up alongside Eric to support him, but have been proven to have absolutely lied. Anyhow, so Naveen levelled that at me. Naveen also made an allegation, formal grievance, against the assistant manager of 14 years who, like me, is a white gay man. And Naveen said it was about the body odour comment, which he denied. And also as well, there was an assistant manager called Aloofman Noofshad, who I'd reported in February 2025 for repeatedly calling me a fucking idiot over a pot of tartar sauce, and had also as well, in the presence of several other colleagues, kept referring to "you people are so disgusting," to which the colleague said, "What do you mean by you people?" And he obviously meant white. "You people are so disgusting." And I reported it to HR, and there was no inclusion policy, there was none of that other harassment policy, part 1 and part 2, that shite that they were spilling out earlier. Fullers, what did they do? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. They did nothing. Yet, Aloofman Noofshad reported the assistant manager, who was a white gay man like me, for, again, racially motivated comments or remarks or treatment. So, can you not see the pattern here that's emerging? That you've got people who, not my words, but Jim Hughes will come on in a little bit in a minute. He goes on to state that I have a problem with South Asians and Muslim people. But how is it? Oh, and I forgot one. This is the best one. Priyanka also made a complaint. Priyanka, again, she was here from India on a student visa. Priyanka made a complaint, a grievance against the assistant manager, who was a white gay man. And again, it was kind of the same thing. A lot of it was about she felt ridiculed about he was always questioning where she was, because she was always off on her phone doing video calls to India because of the time difference, and abandoning her duties, which was making work really difficult. And she also made some comments about undertones of racial prejudice against this assistant manager. And then the twist in that story is a colleague advised Priyanka, when she confided in them, to come and speak to me for kind of some workplace legal advice. And she came and she told me that Naveen Kumar had forced her to make a false complaint against the assistant manager, and she now wanted to retract it. And I said, well, why all of a sudden the change of heart? And she said, because of her faith and her religious belief. She was such a sweet girl. But, a bit stupid, but because of her religion and faith and her beliefs, she felt that there was some form, she didn't use the word karma, but some kind of karma would come back to get her for the wrong that she'd done against the assistant manager. And she felt that to resolve that would be to retract her complaint. But she'd gone to Fuller's to retract the complaint. And he said to her, If you retract it now, you're going to lose your job anyway because you would have to reveal that you lied, and that is a sackable offence and you'll be fired, so just stick with the story. And this girl was in absolute bits. She was in a fright. She was calling in sick. She said she felt sick, and also as well, I don't want to say too much, but she perhaps, was having thoughts that she shouldn't have been having. And I did really feel sorry for this girl. And the good thing is, she went and told several other colleagues, so I've got many witnesses that support this, that Naveen Kumar had forced her into making this false complaint against the manager. So does this pattern not show, to quote Jim Hughes, as you'll hear in a minute, that South Asian people were making these complaints against white people, and none of them really were upheld? None of them really, they were all kind of booted out because there wasn't any evidence, any proof, because essentially, like Naveen and Priyanka admitted by her own admission, they were just lies. And why were they lying? Why were they making these complaints? Because it was evidently clear that due to religion, faith or belief, they wanted rid of people that were homosexual because it wasn't aligned with their own beliefs. So I don't think anything I said from those three comments there that Jim Hughes has quoted me as saying is as he states, where he states, I draw your attention to the following comments which appear to support that you hold discriminatory views. There's a pattern emerging. It's as simple as that. There's nothing discriminatory about it at all. I'm stating the obvious. Moving on. Whilst I accept your evidence that you appear to have very good relations with colleagues or people of many other races and nationalities, such as black people or Polish people, I am forced to conclude that there is a distinct lack of evidence which would suggest the same of South Asian colleagues and Muslim colleagues. How can Fuller's make such... How can you say that? How the fuck can you say that? I don't want to get into too much detail here, but I have had partners that have been Muslim from Iraq. I could get witness testimony, I can get them to write me up. Is that what I've got to do? Is this what you've got to do to now? Because what does he say? What do Fuller say? I am forced. You're not forced, mate. I am forced to conclude that there is a distinct lack of evidence which would suggest the same of South Asian colleagues. Have you got to now go around proving? The burden of proof is on you, mate, not me. Can you believe that Fuller's would say something like this? It just absolutely blows. Who's the discriminatory one here? Fuller's. You can't go around saying that. Essentially what he's saying here is that I'm Islamophobic. You can't go around saying that. You've got to have evidence to back it up. So when Fuller's solicitors, you're going to get to hear at the end, have been sending me letters of defamation, you want to speak to your fucking client, mate, because that is defamatory. And don't take me as using bad language as being a judge of character. I think anybody else would have the same reaction. I'm being accused here of additional... And why are they accusing me of these additional accusations? It's because they know they're losing the fight, they're losing the argument. They need something to get rid of me, which really highlights that all of this is orchestrated by Fuller Smith and Turner, and the sole goal of this exercise is to have me removed from the company. And you have to ask, why? Because before they learned I was HIV positive, no problems. Before I had to raise a legal claim to the Employment Tribunal for HIV/AIDS discrimination, no problems. Now, all of a sudden, I'm Islamophobic as well. Oh, you just cannot make it up. I'm a white British man in the United Kingdom that went to work in a pub company that's been around in the UK since, 1845? And this is what happens. This is the reality of 2025. It's utterly disgusting. Anyway, we've got to move on. The comments you have provided within your own documents derogatorily depict the faith of Islam in a collective negative and demonstrates what I view as behaviour of grouping people together and making negative assumptions that, quote, they must all be the same. Who's he quoting here? Because I never said that. I never said they must all be the same. Is this guy for real? He's now putting words in my mouth. Is it in quotation marks? You can see it for yourself on the Extra T blog. They must all be the same. And do you know what's really interesting and shows just how outdated Fuller, Smith and Turner and Jim Hughes are by way of making these appalling allegations that I have, quote, discriminatory views, end quote, of, quote, South Asians and, quote, Muslims, with absolutely no evidence to support their defamatory claims, essentially claiming I am Islamophobic, purely for raising concerns about a discernible and clear pattern of behaviour of false allegations in regards to race being made against white gay colleagues by a certain group of people truly reflects a disturbing trend where legitimate issues are dismissed and those highlighting them are unfairly labelled, as in this instance by Fullers and Jim Hughes, racist. The discriminatory and defamatory allegations and now these fresh accusations being made by Fuller, Smith and Turner and Jim Hughes have been thoroughly disproven and they've not proven any, yet the persistence of such allegations by Fuller's and its representatives follows concerns highlighted in the Baroness Casey report in June 2025 on grooming gangs, predominantly involving men from certain non-white ethnic backgrounds. Since 2022, there has been continuous concern, talk and debate when it was revealed that local authorities and individuals feared speaking out about the grooming gangs in fear of being labelled racist because they were white, which seems to have been applied to me here by Fuller's and its representative, Jim Hughes. That because I'm speaking out about a certain race of a pattern of behaviour that's going on, or a certain ethnicity, that because I'm white, I'm being racist. And they've labelled me, they've fallen short of saying it, but they've labelled me Islamophobic. That I have a whole discriminatory views against South Asians. It's just absolutely grotesque and absurd. And the interesting part is, Baroness Casey told Sky News on the 16th of June 2025, the same time that this absolute moron was making his allegations against me, quote, "I think the problem is that people are worried about being called racist." And by people, she means white people. "If good people don't grasp difficult things, bad people will. And that's why we have to do it as a society," end quote. It's basically saying that if you fear that you're going to be called racist because you're white and you're going to highlight the wrongdoing of somebody of an opposite race or skin colour or ethnicity or religion or faith, that you're going to be called racist, then they're just going to get away with doing bad things, which is the same applies here. I highlighted a pattern of behaviour where a certain cohort of people were making false complaints about people about race, and it was all similar and the same, and it was always against white people and gay people. There was 3 of us, because there's one that I haven't mentioned. And in regards to Baroness Casey's report on these grooming gangs and white people being feared of being labelled racist if they highlighted the wrongdoing of somebody of a different skin colour or ethnicity or faith or religion, on the 19th of June 2025, the BBC ran a headline, "The son of a former Labour MP who was the first to raise concerns about Asian grooming gangs has described how his mother was smeared and attacked for being a racist, particularly by members of her own party." Precisely the tactic Fullers and Jim Hughes are employing here to silence my valid concerns and levelling unproven and disgusting allegations against me. Fuller's inclusion policy and their call it out charter for racism and discrimination, surely by Jim Hughes' way of thinking, outlined here by his statements against me, must convey a controversial message that if a white individual highlights a pattern of behaviours committed by someone of a different race, the complainant themselves, the white person, will then be labelled as the racist. This is what Jim Hughes has just done. This approach risks conflating legitimate concerns about racial injustice with accusations against those who speak out, effectively silencing discourse and undermining efforts to address systematic issues. Such a stance could discourage victims of witnesses from reporting discriminatory behaviour, thereby perpetuating the very problems the policy claims to combat. Oh, you can't make this up, can you? Just stay silent. If you see it going on, don't say anything because you'll be the one that will be labelled the racist. I mean, that's it. That's it. That's the long and short of it. Anyhow, moving on. To my knowledge, there are many religions and faiths, not simply Islam, which does not explicitly approve of the same-sex relationships. But mate, there's nobody else of any other faith, religion or belief that's levelling all these allegations at white gay men. And listening to this, you've got to remember that you could experience this as a customer. You could walk into one of their pubs, catch one of their colleagues, one of their members of staff, one of their representatives on a bad day, and you could have these same allegations thrown at you. And more so now that they seem to have been supported by those higher up within the company, and they're going to feel emboldened and empowered that they can get away with this again. So I would be incredibly careful if you're considering going into one of their pubs, because this could easily happen to you. Anyhow, what does he go on to say? I certainly feel that to make comments such as you have demonstrates discriminatory behaviour and would not appear supportive of an inclusive working environment. Oh, we just had a break as well to gather my thoughts and feelings and my emotions. An inclusive environment. Are they joking? Let's move on because we haven't got the time. But I've already mentioned in February 2025, I made a complaint about being called a fucking idiot. That's not inclusive. I made a complaint about being referred to as you people because I'm white. That's not inclusive. The company did nothing about it. I'm taking them to an employment tribunal for HIV/AIDS discrimination. Yes, the outcome hasn't been determined yet, but I'm confident that I'll win. That's not an inclusive environment. Oh. For the avoidance of doubt, you are not being disciplined for the comments within the documents referred to above, but these remarks, made by you in documentation as part of a formal process, when considered alongside the wider evidence, reinforces my conclusion that you do hold discriminatory views and the comment was more likely than not made on the 2nd of April, and therefore the allegation is upheld. Eh? That doesn't even make any sense. He just contradicted himself. For the avoidance of doubt, you are not being disciplined for the comments within the documents referred to above. The statements that he says, I'm Islamophobic. Please do me a favour. So I'm not being disciplined for that. Then he contradicts himself by saying, but these remarks made by you within documentation as part of the formal process, when considered alongside the wider evidence, reinforce my conclusion. Yeah, because you haven't got two brain cells to rub together, mate. That you do hold discriminatory... So hang on a minute. So for the avoidance of doubt, you are not being disciplined for the comments above. But now he's saying that... that reinforce my conclusion that you do hold discriminatory views and the comment was more than likely than not made on the 2nd of... Well, hang on a minute. The CCTV proves that I didn't say it. And he said he reviewed the CCTV as part of the evidence. So... Oh, do you know, this guy, I don't think he knows his ass from his elbow. Anyway, just gotta move on because it's just too much. Anyway, moving on to point 2. Following the evidence presented, I believe you have taken photographs and or recorded videos of fellow colleagues without their knowledge or consent. This conduct could constitute a serious breach of employee privacy, violates workplace policies regarding respectful and ethical behaviour, and may contravene applicable data protection and privacy laws. Oh, so this is the video they're talking about that was dated the 28th of April when I'd been signed off sick since the 14th. I wasn't even there on the 28th of April because I was signed off sick, so... Oh. I have considered the evidence collected in the investigation and note a common theme of team members. Yeah, because these people are reliable, aren't they? They've got credibility. When Kamara's lied and Naveen has lied through his arse because he says he was there and heard something when he wasn't there that day. You know, you get the picture. Theme of team members being alarmed by your behaviours of taking photos of them without their consent whilst they are working, to the extent that it has led to them feeling unsafe within the workplace. Colleagues should feel safe to work on site. Oh, do you know, there'll definitely be more episodes on my employment tribunal which will just blow your mind, and I'll probably be able to speak a lot more about this, but I'm going to tell you enough anyway, but yeah, there's just so much more I could tell you. Without the fear that they are being covertly filmed by a colleague. Oh, gee, Jessica Fletcher, eat your heart out. I am also drawn to your comments made to the People team on the 29th of April 2025 from your personal email where you stated you were, quote, collecting evidence of the team wearing low-cut tops or crop tops, end quote. Now, this quote is true, and I'll tell you about it in a minute, but let's get this finished. To which I infer relates to female members of the team. I have also seen a video where a young female member of the team has been recorded without her consent, to which Mr. Parada Esteves identified as being taken by you. I'll tell you more about this. I handled the video because it was sent to me by a WhatsApp to help Paolo in his disciplinary, but it was filmed on the 28th of April. I was signed off sick. Anyhow, if you feel there is wrongdoing on shift or staff not appropriately dressed, you can refer such matters to your line manager and bring it to their attention using formal channels. Taking covert images of them or collecting images of your peers on your personal devices is highly inappropriate and I believe leads to the collective sense of staff, particularly younger members of the site, feeling unsafe because of you. I therefore uphold this allegation. Your last day of employment with the company is the 28th of June 2025. You will be paid up to the... and you know, even though the result is defamatory and discriminatory and completely unfair and he's going to go to the employment tribunal, do you know it's the best thing they could have done? There's no way that I could have continued working for such an appalling employer such as Fuller Smith and Turner that is clearly not inclusive, is clearly, and I can say this from the evidence, is clearly racist. It's a racist company to work for. If you are white, English, British, and have got a disability such as HIV/AIDS, they don't want you there because by their own actions and by their own alleged evidence, I've proven that. It proves that they bent over backwards, went out of their way and dodged the lies and overlooked the glaring contradictions in their witnesses that, anyhow, let's move on. And the allegation that I was taking photos of female colleagues in low-cut tops is beyond bizarre, especially when I'm a gay man. I've got the gay plague, for fuck's sake. I'm living with HIV/AIDS. I've been gay all my life. Why on earth would I be taking photographs of female colleagues in low-cut tops? But however, there is some truth to Fuller Smith and Turner's claims, as I explained to HR in a previous email related to colleagues not adhering to the alleged uniform policy. When Ershad Muffajubi became the pub manager, explicitly criticising certain attire. For example, he remarked that Harriet, quote, looks like a prostitute, end quote, to me and several colleagues, because she wore a crop top, revealing her midriff slightly, although nobody took issue with this during her whole time that she was employed with Fuller's, let alone Fuller's, who posted a photograph of Harriet in this crop top on one of its social media pages to represent the pub without issue or concern. Yet, a friend Ershad brought to the pub, who was a person of colour, was permitted to wear the same style without issue. My employment tribunal claim centres on discrimination linked to the alleged uniform changes and alleged policies, making it legally relevant to gather evidence showing inconsistent enforcement of these rules. Importantly, I did not take these photographs myself. I was not allowed back at the pub, but I captured screenshots from the pub's social media accounts, which included date, time, and location stamps to demonstrate to the employment tribunal judge that discrimination was occurring in how I was treated. This context is crucial and cannot prejudice my ongoing employment tribunal claim, especially as I must address this and rebut the unfounded allegations of sexual harassment made by Fuller Smith and Turner and its representatives by way of its allegations suggesting I am some form of sexual pervert, a claim that is not only baseless but deeply damaging. Screenshots are available on the Extra T blog that clearly shows dates from when Fuller Smith and Turner posted images of staff not adhering to the alleged dress code that they claimed was being implemented and was an element of discrimination relating to my disability. These images captured on my computer desktop were captured in late 2024 and early 2025, well before my return in March 2025, long preceding these absurd accusations. Fuller's have failed to provide a single photo that they alleged I took, nor a single piece of CCTV footage to support their claim that I was taking inappropriate photos. While they did produce CCTV footage to imply I made a racist remark, the footage contained no sound and ultimately disproved such a statement. Crucially, there is no evidence whatsoever of me pointing my phone at colleagues or taking photos, because no such behaviour occurred. In fact, it was Fuller Smith and Turner and its representatives who were taking and posting photos themselves on social media, unintentionally supplying evidence that supports my claim in court that I was being discriminated. So, thank you very much. But the allegation against me, absolutely false, defamatory and discriminatory, and totally unproven because they've not produced one shred of evidence. And Fuller's assertion that their case rests on witness testimony collapses under scrutiny, particularly in light of Naveen Kumar's statement, which has been unequivocally discredited because Naveen was not present at work on the day he claimed to have overheard the allegation and oddly repeated the accusation verbatim, a strong sign of fabrication. His testimony is riddled with inconsistencies and falsehoods, and when paired with the complete disproof of every claim made by Arit Tunk, Fuller's entire evidential foundation is severely compromised. They are unable to sustain any allegation when their principal witness has proven to be dishonest and entirely lacking in credibility. Additionally, Fuller Smith and Turner failed to produce a single photograph allegedly taken by me, diminishes their case and exposes, I suspect to you as well as to me, the disgraceful nature of their conduct and accusations as a company. It's just appalling, if not worrying for both employees and its customers, you. Now, here is a plot twist. So, we've heard from Fuller's alleged witnesses, their own representatives, Arik Tung, Kamara Greenidge-Reed, the very special Naveen Kumar, and Milan Ivanov. And I have exposed these representatives of Fuller's to have deliberately lied, all of them. But in the case of Milan Ivanov and Naveen Kumar, they not only lied, but I exposed them as having not even been present at the time of the alleged incident. However, Fuller's used testimony from these representatives, its employees, but are you ready? Because there was no testimony from the one and only person who was present, who was a witness, Fuller's employee, a representative, Dennis. Dennis is the star witness, despite Fuller's deliberately withholding the CCTV from me during the disciplinary process, which they claimed showed I made these alleged statements. The footage actually shows that the one and only witness who was there, Dennis, was looking directly at me and Arit Tung, literally 1 meter away at the exact moment that Arit claims I made these statements. Yet, Dennis's witness statement and testimony are missing from the evidence bundle entirely. You thinking what I'm thinking? It is perplexing, isn't it, how Fuller's could include witness testimony from Naveen Kumar, who asserted he was present and heard me say, quote, "You people are lazy, you should go back to your country," end quote, when the timesheets clearly showed, and as I exposed, Naveen Kumar was not there because it was his day off, a fact Fuller's had to concede. Meanwhile, Dennis's testimony, the testimony of the sole actual witness at the scene, is conspicuously absent. Interesting. And I highlighted this from an early stage when Fuller's only sent me the photograph of the monitor of the CCTV still image, and I could see that Dennis was stood in the corner, stood nearby. When I received the CCTV footage retrospectively, it pricked up my ears even more because Dennis was actually looking at me and Arit. And I asked repeatedly for Fuller's to address this inconsistency, but they consistently refused to respond. It became evident that Dennis, the sole witness present, did not support the false claims made by Fuller's and its representatives. Dennis has since confirmed to a colleague that he was invited to a meeting to provide witness testimony, which he did. His testimony explicitly stated that I had not made the alleged statements attributed to me by Fuller's and its representatives, a fact notably absent from their bundle of alleged evidence, as it did not support their claims. An odd admission indeed, but one to clearly enable them to remove me from the company, because this was all clearly being orchestrated from the top. Furthermore, Ben Bullman Bell, who conducted the meeting with Dennis during the investigation phase, and Jim Hughes, both representing Fuller's, claimed reliance on witness testimonies of people not present, and deliberately excluding Dennis's own, the only person that at the alleged moment and who testified no such statement was made by me. You can see both the CCTV footage and the still image that shows Dennis stood around 1 meter from Arit Tung and me, and he is looking both of us in the face, so would have seen me make the alleged statement and most definitely have heard it, if it had been said as alleged. Although the CCTV shows my lips and mouth not moving, subsequently supported by the testimony of Dennis that I did not make this statement. I had only met Dennis a few times at work. He is a genuinely pleasant individual from Argentina. Given his background, it is unlikely Dennis would overlook or tolerate statements that others have alleged, as they would have been personally offensive to him. Dennis's lack of offence confirms the statements were never made. It is therefore extraordinary that Fuller's relied on testimonies from individuals neither present nor near the incident, as CCTV footage clearly demonstrates. While disregarding Dennis's testimony, the only account from someone actually there, and instead Fuller's and Jim Hughes said they applied the balance of probability standard under such circumstances, which is deeply flawed. And not forgetting Fuller's making those additional allegations that I was somewhat Islamophobic, which I could not respond to, and Fuller's claiming they were, quote, forced, end quote, to apply their own racial prejudice of their own allegation, with zero proof to their balance of probability theory to state that it was likely that I made the alleged statement, despite Dennis and the actual CCTV footage showing I did not make any such statements. My lips and mouth do not move. Unless, I suppose, like I feel like I have been this whole process, I was talking out of my arse. Oh. And there is no escaping that throughout these 2 episodes, at every juncture, Fuller's conduct reveals a shocking absence of integrity. Their repeated failures expose a deeply corrupt approach to this entire matter. As a consequence, I have made a subject access request for Dennis's statement and other data that Fuller's hold on me, including all their emails for the purpose of the legal action that will shortly follow. Let's see if they forward this interesting snippet of evidence in form of the meeting notes and or witness testimony of Dennis, or will it just have magically disappeared? The appeal. The appeal emphasised the absence of Dennis's witness testimony, which would have confirmed that I never made the statements alleged by Fuller's and their representatives. The appeal also detailed the serious flaws, contradictions and falsehoods, better known as lies, I had exposed throughout the proceedings, which I've shared with you in these 2 episodes. Crucially, it highlighted Fuller's deliberate withholding of the CCTV footage that they claimed supported their case, a practice deemed unfair under ACAS guidelines, where all documentary evidence must be shared ahead of a hearing for the accused to be able to respond accordingly. After my dismissal, the CCTV footage was provided the very next day by the third-party contractor handling my subject access request. In response, I directed the appeal towards a 15-minute presentation of that CCTV footage that unequivocally demonstrated that Arik Tunk, Kamara Greenidge-Reed, Milan Ivanov, Naveen Kumar and Ershad Muffajubi had all lied. The footage, which was slowed down, zoomed in and of exceptional quality, clearly disproved their allegations and undermined the basis of Fuller Smith and Turner's claims. The appeal was assigned to someone called Carrie Joslin. Yeah, I don't even need to say it, you know, no, of Fuller Smith and Turner, who dismissed it on the grounds that there was no fresh evidence. This response is baffling, suggesting either a significant lapse in judgment or external influence compelling her to make such a claim. The evidence presented was undeniably new and compelling, highlighting not only fresh facts but also clear procedural flaws that compromise the fairness and transparency of the disciplinary hearing. For those interested, the full CCTV footage can be reviewed on the Extra T blog or YouTube, the links of which are in the show notes. And then, from one idiot to another, solicitors sent me 2 threatening and intimidating letters, stating that their client, Fuller Smith and Turner, had instructed them to inform me that if I were to speak openly, they would take legal action. I will never be silenced, and I am confident there are no grounds for any action against me, given the evidence I have shared clearly demonstrates that Fuller Smith and Turner and its representatives, trading as Griffin Catering Services, made defamatory and discriminatory statements without any evidence. Furthermore, their claims in these episodes have proven to be seriously flawed, due to the lies they and their representatives attempted to pass off as factual. It is evident that these actions were motivated by my race, nationality and disability, specifically being white, British and HIV positive. As a person living with HIV/AIDS who has endured the horrendous challenges associated with this condition and this employer, and as the author of a book on HIV workplace discrimination and blackmail, as well as the writer, producer and host of AIDS The Lost Voices, a podcast highlighting HIV/AIDS discrimination for a number of years now, I have long used my voice and platform to expose and combat the stigma surrounding HIV/AIDS. My activism, which includes lobbying the UK government and even the King of England to address ongoing discrimination, enables me to speak openly about the prejudice I and others have faced. In light of the appalling claims that Fuller Smith and Turner may put forward, I want to be unequivocal that I am not in any way inciting any acts online or at any of their establishments. On the contrary, my concern is quite the opposite. I would strongly urge anyone listening to avoid any of their pubs or hotels, as the possibility of encountering discriminatory treatment or unfounded allegations such as I have from their representatives on a bad day is a very real risk, as I have just shared. Arik Tunk, Kamara Greenidge-Reed, Naveen Kumar and Jim Hughes have all been reported to the Metropolitan Police for committing a hate crime, having made false allegations motivated by prejudice against my identity and condition. Such actions, rooted in malice and discrimination, undermine the principles of fairness and respect that society must uphold. There is no place in any community or workplace for malicious allegations of racism or hate, and these behaviours must be addressed with the seriousness they deserve to ensure justice and protect the dignity of all individuals. In light of people like Lucy Connolly inciting a hate crime via a tweet, this scenario is very different, and I trust that the judicial process will place, once the evidence has been reviewed, a custodial sentence on those concerned. And they should think themselves lucky, because a custodial sentence is very different to a life sentence. Because having endured what I endured, where nobody was not merely believing me, but was ignoring the evidence that was blatantly obvious and making false allegations and accusations against me, I decided to take my own life. Unfortunately, for Fuller Smith and Turner, that attempt failed, and when I woke up, I realised that I was still alive to use my voice to highlight that HIV-AIDS discrimination in 2025 is still real, along with anti-white racism. If you've been affected by the content of this episode, then you can reach out to the Samaritans by calling 116-123 or emailing joe@samaritans.org.